Welcome back to the Deep Digger Sports Pod. I'm your host, Drew. My other host right over there.
What's up? It's D. Good to see you again. Be sure to stop what you're doing, hit that like button, drop some comments below, and more importantly, subscribe.
Yet today we are talking the quarterbacks coming up in the NFL draft here. We are going to be looking at a list from ESPN. This is from mid-November, so probably not updated, but it will give us some room to talk about these quarterbacks. So first they have Cam Ward, which I think has changed. Shedeur Sanders is probably the number one pick, but let's talk Cam Ward a little bit. Say the Raiders are the first pick in the draft. They take Shedeur. Where does Cam Ward fall after that? And is he the number two?
I think he is the number two. I think by far it's Shador and Cam Ward, whichever order you prefer, but I think that's number one and number two QB in this draft. I think after that, it really does fall off a cliff as far as not from the talent standpoint, more from the talent standpoint. We're going to be fucking on it. Who's more consistent, and I think who actually translates better into the NFL. I think it really you hit a wall after these two guys.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not even sold on Cam Ward being a first round pick because I think we might have the next Jameis Winston on our hands. If you watch Cam Ward's games, he is good for 2 or 3 stupid throws in each game, and that's against ACC level talent. So I get he's had big games, he has big numbers. Will it translate to NFL talent? I'm not completely sold on it.
I would say the thing that scares me about Cam Ward would be the fact, like how the nonchalantness that he plays with. He plays with such an air of like, I've always been the most talented guy on any field that I step on. And it gets him into trouble. I mean, he does stupid spin moves that he gets him into trouble. Like he runs into the pass rush, then running away from it. So I seen someone was like, he literally clickbaits, like he's like clickbaiting to like get this throw off. And it's like, I just don't like his style. I think that is not something that translates well in the NFL. We see guys year after year go into it that are this guy, that were the most talented guy when they step onto any field, and they step on the NFL field, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not that guy. I'm getting run down by random D linemen that are athletic. And so I think it's going to be a rude awakening once he steps on to NFL like competition.
Yeah, I know I'm saying like I don't think he's a first round talent, but I think if you're the Giants, you can't pass on him. Like you need a quarterback desperately. You are not going to get really someone with this high of a ceiling in the rest of the draft. Like I don't see who you would chase after if not Cam Ward, other than if Shador falls to you.
Yeah, I think if it's the way it's shaping up to be, and it's Raiders 1, Giants 2, then you have to, if you're the Giants, you just have to take whoever falls to you.
Yeah, so then we got Shador here. We're saying everything's looking like Raiders and Shador. Seems like it's where he wants to be, or at least what he said in the past. Not much built around him. He will have Brock Bowers. Other than that, Max Crosby maybe will still be there if they don't trade him for some more draft capital. I don't see how he could excel in that situation right off the bat.
I don't see it either. And I'm going to be completely honest. I asked you about this on our other podcast, like the other clip that we have. Do you think like Prime steps in and like blocks this? Says, hey, actually, you know what? We really want to go to New York. Like we appreciate the thought. We want to go to New York instead.
If it was a smaller market, I think he would, but it's like, I mean, he could be the first one in Vegas to really make a name for himself. Like he could be the face of Vegas football.
I
I
don't
just
think
don't
they give a
think that's
shit.
set up.
I don't think you can. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, fuck Vegas. You can go to New York. New York is the biggest market that there is. And they have a guy there in Malik Neighbors that wants to be force fed the ball. And guess what Shador Sanders does? He force feeds the number one receiver the ball. We see that right now with what he has with Travis Hunter, where they're like, when Travis is like, okay, I think I'm good. He's like, I'll force feed you. Don't worry. Are you going to be open? Are you going to be open? Okay, then I'm getting it to you. Like, I think that that's a match made in heaven. Him and Malik Neighbors. I think that's perfect. And I think they run New York. If I'm Dion, I'm saying respectfully, I think you should either take Travis or Abdul Carter. Raiders, good luck.
Here's the case for Vegas is there is multiple other sports teams. I think he'll be the biggest dog there out of the sports teams. The marketing would be insane. He'd be on every casino. His face would be everywhere. He could be with Tom Brady. He can learn from the GOAT. He he'll be the entire franchise the second he gets drafted. And I think he does have like kind of the pull that Caleb Williams was feeling that he would have on day one is like, listen, you got to run decisions by me. Like I need equity in the team because like you'd have no other option. I'm the guy who's supposed to be the savior and turn this around. So in New York, would he have that kind of pull as much?
He's not going to have that type of pool. I don't think that they're going to really be like, hey, we're going to build it around. I don't think that works. I mean, we've seen it with fucking Aaron Rodgers. That shit don't fly, dude. Like, you can't be Jackie Moon. You can't be a player, coach, GM. You can't do that shit. I think just shut up and do your job. Like, hey, don't worry. We're going to get a coach in here. We're going to get a GM in here. But all we need you to do is be the star quarterback. That's it. And I think if Shador does that, like, he's going to be huge.
Well, let's talk about the number 3 here that we've seen on a couple of the boards him pretty high. Listen, no disrespect, but this might sound disrespectful. Jalen Milroe is not a quarterback. Is that fair for me to say?
100%. Like, what are we talking about?
He's a runner. Like he is a great runner. He's a great athlete. He can throw a little bit, but man, are we talking another Anthony Richardson here and without the cannon? Like he is not accurate. This is insane that we're in a draft class right now that Jalen Milroe is getting listed 3rd.
I think like we're going to talk about this with Quinn Ewers, but I think this also applies to Jalen Milroe. I think Jalen Milroe should just stay another year in college. I mean, we've seen like he's still not good, but his jump from last season to this season, he looks much more improved as a passer. If he just takes more reps in college, I think that he can get to a point where he is actually hands down a first round quarterback. I think that's not like some pipe dream for him. I think that we're seeing the downfall with Anthony Richardson right now, where it's like we have this guy, he really shouldn't be playing QB1, but we can't develop him any other way than just throwing him out there and letting him suffer. Jalen Milroe has the option to go back. If I was Jalen Milroe, I would stay at Bama. I think you have a pretty a sweet setup there. You have like you would endure yourself in Tuscaloosa. I think that you do it, you improve as a passer again, you make another jump, and then you really play yourself into being a viable first round quarterback. If I was him, I would stay.
I would definitely stay because I think he's what teams are looking for, and a very athletic guy who can run, but he needs with that athleticism build on the passing game. And I think next year would give him a good shot. And also in like 2 years, though, you have other guys who are coming up like Sellers from South Carolina, DJ Lagway, who are kind of in that build that they're runners. And I think they could end up being better throwers of the ball than Milroe. So is someone who's kind of in the middle of the pack going to take a huge leap on Milroe or wait for another year? I think he needs to build up that equity and say, like, look at my body work as a passer, and especially Alabama on a down year.
Yeah. Someone who I think should have been slotted in this, and I don't think they are because they just, I know this is an older one, but his play has really picked up and he's been playing higher level competition. Drew Aller, Penn State, and he actually just announced today that he will be coming back to Penn State for another year. And Drew Aller is someone that was climbing up draft boards. And I think hands down, he's a much better passer than Jalen Milroe. And if we're talking like, okay, that would have been the third guy. It is crazy. Jalen Milroe, just go back to college, bro. Like, there is no shame. You were just a junior. Go play your senior year, make a bag in NIL, improve as a passer again, because we've already seen you leap tremendously. Take another leap, and I think that you're set, dude.
Yeah, and his spot's not questioned at Bama. His starting job is there.
Yeah, 100%.
All
And
right,
so if
number
we're
four on
seeing
the list.
guys like Drew Aller coming back, I think there's no shame in you, Jalen Milroe, taking another year and going back.
All right, number 4 here. It would be crazy. Am seeing other lists with Carson Beck still on there. He does have that injury to his arm, the same as Brock Purdy, but not as bad. Carson Beck, honestly, what round would you take Carson Beck? Healthy Carson Beck. I would take him in the fifth round.
I would say probably like third, fourth, like just because you bumped the pedigree. He's played a lot of football. We've seen it with guys that accomplished a whole of a lot less, and fucking Brock Purdy. That like, hey, these guys that are older, that have played a lot of football, that understand what it is at a high level, and realistically, Brock Purdy was in the Big Ten. This is the SEC. I think that there's value in those guys, whether it be just them being able to sit on the bench and like kind of give a high level perspective, or if they when they do step into a starting role, they're not as rattled. With that being said, Carson Beck had all this hype to him coming into the season. He was going to be 1-1. He was a Heisman front runner. You've got to be a little bit concerned if you're someone that's evaluating him. If I get in there and I interview him, I'm asking him what went wrong this season. How do you feel about it? How does it feel to be a disappointment? Like, I think you really go in there and you grill him and see what it's made out of, because this was a tough year for Carson Beck. And depending on how he answers, he could be like, yeah, you know what? It didn't fall my way, but I'm very confident that I'm only getting better. I'm only improving. And I think that whoever gets me is going to get a hungry dog. Like, that's something that I'd be excited about moving forward. But if he's like very offended or standoffish about it, then it's like, all right, cool. Like, back of the line, bud.
Yeah, I think there's just days where his play fell off a cliff, and I think in that Texas game, if he doesn't go down, Georgia's getting worked. I think Gunnar Stockton outplayed him by miles, and I think if you had to tell me today, I'm taking obviously Shador and Cam Ward ahead of him. I'm taking Jackson Dart ahead of him, and I think Cade Klubnik has been a head and shoulders above him, and so it's tough. Like this guy Carson Beck, and then we're gonna talk about Quinn Ewers, but those are guys that we were thinking of like maybe top 10 draft picks going into this season, and they just fell off a cliff so hard where I don't know really how good this quarterback draft class is at all. Like if it's even a good class outside of the top.
I mean, he's had multiple games this season, senior year, where he's thrown 3 picks. Like, that's crazy. To be a guy that was touted as going to be 1-1, to go out there and throw multiple games where it's 3 picks, like that's insane. He spirals.
Yeah, and the last one here, well, there's Drew Aller. We want to talk about Quinn Ewers because this is a guy. There was rumblings right now that he's potentially going to stay in college.
Yeah, so the reports started to pick up, I believe 2 days ago. Hey, like, their mystery Big Ten team is going to offer him $4 million to come over there. And people are like, okay, well, there's 3 options for Quinn Ewers. One, he's going to go to the draft, which everyone's thinking. 2, he's going to stay at Texas, which then I think Texas has a very big conundrum on their hands. Like, what do we do? Because we've had now Arch Manning sitting here for 2 seasons. We can't have him sit a third. And there were 3. He goes on, he plays in college at another Power 5 school. And I was telling you before, like, I think Quinn Ewers should go to another Power 5 school. I don't think that he's going to be welcome in Texas, if I'm going to be completely honest. Now it's Arch Manning's time. I think that there's even a debate right now, like, is our offense better with Arch Manning this year? So I think that you got to move on if you're Quinn. I think that you're a guy who's very marketable. You're the Dr. Pepper spokesman. You're a guy who, I think, if you go to any school in the Big Ten, you walk on campus and you're immediately the number one guy. The fans are gonna rally around you. They love you. And realistically, this season has not gone well for you. You've been injured. You've been up and down as far as your play. The Texas offense has really stagnated when you've been at the helm. I think that he could play himself into a much better position while also making a very good chunk of change and setting himself up to come back, just like I said with Jalen Milrow, to come back and be a certified first round pick.
Yeah, and I think the only thing is it being such a weak quarterback class. Does he say this is going to push me to the first round this year? That some team's going to be desperate. I have the pedigree. He is a good thrower of the ball. He's not mobile. I think you could question some of his decision making on the field. But does he say like, hey, maybe next year's quarterback class is better, and what if I don't have a good year? Like, what if I don't ball out in the Big Ten? It's still going to be a little bit of a challenge. It's not like I'm going to like a very easy conference. That'd be the only argument for him to go to the league. But you got to say, like, do you want to go be a backup for a year, maybe 2 years, or do you want to go play one more year college football? Maybe you get on a good squad, you catch lightning in the bottle, you make the playoffs, everyone loves you. You know, you can't go to Texas because Arch Manning. If I'm Arch Manning at this point, yeah, you've been really loyal, but if they come back and say, "Well, listen, Quinn, he's been here, we got to go him," I'm hitting the portal as fast as I can, and Arch Manning would have every school in the nation offering him the starting role.
Do you want me to speculate who I think the Big Ten team would have been?
What are you thinking?
Oregon. They've done it twice, back-to-back years. This last couple years, they did it with Bo Nix. They did it with Dylan Gabriel. Another big name guy who's, again, a rent for 1 year, but it's going to be a high caliber year. I think that fits Quinn Ewers perfectly. I think that he could run that offense very, very well. I think a year with Quinn Ewers at the helm, I think it blows up his draft stock. I think if he stays healthy, and Quinn Ewers is so weird when it comes to like he has a rocket arm, but he just seems to like not put any oomph onto his balls. Like sometimes they just sail, sometimes they're lollipops, and it's just like, Quinn, I know you can rocket it. Just do that. Like if you do that every once and mix it in, like we don't have to babysit it. Like, come on. So like I think if he just finds the perfect mix of how to use his arm strength this next season coming up, I think that he would be a first round pick.
Yeah, well, that's all we're gonna have for the quarterbacks. You guys let us know your comments. Who you think is going in the first round? Who do you think is your top quarterback? Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
All right, later.